Alright YouTubes, in today's video we're going to be doing some paint preparation and priming, getting a job ready to spray. So this vehicle's a Vauxhall van, Vauxhall Vivaro, and we've already done the repair. So if you want to see the repair stage of this job, there's a video out for that. Go and check that video out. It'll be up here somewhere. So we're spraying this complete side panel and this complete door, so we're going to be blending. So the filler repair's done, finished off in 220. We're going to sand out all the scratches created from the block and from the filler repair. And I like to get, if I can, if I've got time, I like to get the whole job prepped. So get all the dusty work done, get the whole job prepped for paint, and then do my primer. And then all I've got left to do then, once that primer's cured, is get that primer prepped, and then it's ready to go in the booth, mask and spray. So initially I'm gonna, like I say, this filler repair's been finished off in 220 grit. I'm gonna use a 240 grit to sand out all of this, get all this feathered out, all these scratches. You want to get these nice and consistent, get any of these paint layers feathered out, because they can, from the block, will leave little ridges here and there. Get all that sanded out, and then the rest of it, this whole panel is going to be coloured, and then we're going to be blending into this door. So I'm going to prep all this out. All of this is going to be 500 grit, and then this is going to be as a blend panel. So I'm going to prep the rest of this out with 800 grit, and both of these are on the dual action sander, and then go around all the edges with 1000 grit. Take out as much texture as I can, but obviously be careful not to break through anywhere from the halfway point. Anywhere I can't get in with a pad, I do it with a grey Scotch wet and some paste. That's it, let's get into it. Let's start getting this job prepped out.
boots and Adidas that I bought. Over half the price off. Just those.
Why?
Our new home kitchen's massive.
What size you got?
Well, the smallest is a large.
So that's it in primer now. So I've done all the paint preparation. It's in primer. And what I normally do now is I leave all the masking on it and I'll go over all the primer, have a really good look and see if I can see any pinholes. You know, if you can see, you know, big pinholes, you know, I fill those. If I can see them in the filler, I fill those first and then obviously put that pour filler on. That's going to fill in all those little micro pinholes, which is really common with a lot of fillers. Sometimes if you put too much hardener in, it's almost like solvent pop where it's trying to escape. And you know, sometimes it's not easy to get it in there in a few strokes with the spreader. Sometimes you've got to keep trying to shape it, you know. So that overspreading can cause little pockets of air getting trapped. You know, when you rub it down, you break those little pockets. Tiny little micro holes there, you know, quite hard to see. So the pour filler will take care of those. It won't take care of bigger pinholes. So I always check the filler first. If I can see any big ones, get some 1K stopper or just like the Dolphin Glaze fine filler. Just try and wipe them in. Don't sort of bulk it on there. Just wipe it in and wipe off the excess, and it will sit in that chip. And that's what I do now on the primer. No rubbing down, no guide coat on it. A lot of proper 2K primers have got a bit of a sheen to it. Catch it in the right light or get a light to help you, and I'll just go all over it. See if I can see any pinholes. Get some fine filler. Get that wiped in. Just wipe it in. Wipe off the excess. Let it sit into the pinhole. Straight on top of the unsanded primer's fine, and you'll find by the time then when you go to block it all, when that bit of filler's cured, when you go to block it all, you'll block down the primer, you'll block down that little bit of filler that you put in, and it almost, you know, disappears. Quite often you'll block that primer. Primer will get a fair amount of you know, pinholes, small ones, but if you're just using the primer to fill those pinholes, you've got the risk of, if you can still see them, you've got the risk of breaking through because you're trying to get rid of those pinholes by blocking it. Because you want to try and minimise the amount of breakthroughs really, and that still have a, you know, half decent build of primer on there. You don't want to be taking the majority of it off. So you'll find when you block it and the filler's in there, it literally is like a tiny little speck of filler maybe left in that pinhole, and then you haven't, you know, your primer doesn't have to do so much work. So sometimes you do miss the odd one, and then I start blocking it. So then I leave the masking on. I just take off the masking on this door because I want to obviously block through this a little bit. Leave the masking on, get it blocked in 320 grit, and then move on to the next stage, which would be dual action sander, and then I guide coat it with a powdered guide coat. I find a bit better than like using aerosol ones or just using black spray, because it's more consistent and it will sit in all the scratches and highlight your scratches a bit better. So that's what I do now, give it a good check for any pinholes. I think it's okay, to be honest with you. Where I put fine filler on there as the last skim, you normally catch a lot of them, and like I say, the pore filler, it's really handy. That pore filler just takes away the amount of work that the primer has to do, no matter what 2K primer you got. And I always like to give it a lamp, even if I'm leaving it overnight. Whatever 2K primer you're using, I always like to, you know, at least give it about 15-minute bake with a lamp if you've got one, because then you're just going to make sure you've cured all that through, and it will minimise sinkage, you know, later on down the road. You know, 2 or 3 weeks later, you may get a little bit of sinkage off of it, depending on the primer. Especially if you've had to put, you know, you've put a fair amount on, you may want to put, you know, an extra bit of primer on there just to help you with a bit of reshaping. It's good to just heat that up and get that cured off before you paint. You know, a bake will definitely minimise any sinkage later on after you've painted it. So check it for pinholes, get some filler in if it needs it, then start blocking it with 320. Right then YouTubers, that's the van all prepped now. So it's all prepped, and just give it a quick water to grease. You'll find with a powdery guide coats on your hands, it's messy old job, paint preparation. Where you know it's all been keyed up and that black powder can stick into some of the scratches like in your blend areas and all that, so I'll give it a water to grease before I go in the booth. So that's it all prepped out, ready now, all blown off, ready to go in the booth. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you got something from it. If you could please like, share and subscribe and all that good stuff to help my channel grow, it'd be much appreciated if you enjoyed my content. And the next stage of this job would be the masking and the spraying of it, and then we'll see the final results. So I'll just give you a quick look at the arch. Now it's softened up. Quite lucky on this one, it didn't break through, and I'm happy with that arch, the way it's shaped. I think it looks pretty much like the other side. We'll soon see when the paint's on it. And with metallics, you know, if it's a dark colour or, you know, a solid colour, I finish all my primer off in 500 grit and with the soft pads. But with metallics, I just go over quickly with 600 grit, so I do all the edges after I've DA'd it with 500 grit. Do all the edges with 500 grit, then I give it another going over with 600 grit on the soft pad, and then I just quickly run the DA over it. It just sometimes with this direct sun on metallic and all the metallic showing out with the sunlight on it, sometimes you may see a bit of scratching. This is going to have blender coat all over it, which aids and fills in any prepping scratches that may be highlighted by the metallic. But other colours, dark colours and pearls and solid colours, 500 grit I find is good enough. We've all got a different variety of grits that we use to start off with. Majority of people probably do dry sanding like I do, and yeah, do change it depending on the colour and the type of work. But you know, as a rule, sort of, I wouldn't go no coarser than like 240 grit maybe for initially knocking that primer off. And if you do 240, you want to go 400 grit. I just find some water-based systems and other paint systems can handle some scratches better than others. So I find with this Mipa, 320 on the Cubitron strips gives me plenty of cut, quick, they last forever. So I just do 320 and then jump to 500. But if you're going to do 240, maybe jump to 400, maybe 500, but I do 320, 500 grit, and then I finish off in 6 on sort of high metallic colours. So yeah, look out for the next video. The next video is going to be the masking and the spraying in this job, and then you'll see the end results. So again, thanks for watching, really appreciate it. Cheers it.
What?
Going too fast.
Went non-verbal.
Again, thanks for watching, really appreciate it. Look out for the next video, and like I say, if you want to see the repairing of this job, go and check that video out, and we'll see you again soon. Look after yourselves, man. Cheers. Or woman.